I love this episode, The Man from Mi5. I remember it very fondly from my childhood. It's one of my favourite ones from when I was a kid. Now this one, it doesn't focus necessarily on the international rescue craft as such. There's no real big rescue. It's all to do with industrial espionage and this spy-esque European thriller vibe that just maintains constantly throughout the episode. It was a really awesome episode.
In a way, it's almost like the Perils of Penelope, because Penelope is pretty much the butt end of this one, because she's the one orienting the rescue, except it's not like in Perils of Penelope when she ends up as a victim of something. The whole thing in this is set up.
Yeah. It's a very heavily focused Penny and Parker episode. They're the ones who are taking the most, active involvement in the episode. It basically follows the British Secret Service contacting International Rescue for assistance in getting back these plans that were stolen in the opening. Talking of the opening, probably the best part of the entire episode, sets the mood immediately. You've got that awesome theme song, and you got the French villain. He is a typical, James Bond baddie. It's like, we're going to get the plans.
We were heavily reminded of a lot of James Bond films we've seen in the past. Like, you remembered heavily of Thunderbirds.
Yeah, Thunderbirds, mainly because a lot of it is set in the sea and out on the water. But then there was also elements of GoldenEye in there, which you kind of noticed.
Yeah, because that has a scene in Monte Carlo where he's on a frigate where James Bond is uncovering the lost helicopter being flown by Xenia, who's a agent of Sean Bean, the Giannis group.
Yeah, but you've got that great opening, the French villain. I can't really think what to call him, terrorist or villain. I'll go with villain. Frenchie, Pepe, gets on board his name's Carl, Carl, the French baddie, gets on board this boat that's set to meet with Mi5 and deliver top secret, secure nuclear plans, I think. Kills the security, goes rummaging around in the drawers in probably the best example of the close-up on the hands that we keep talking about, and then he finds the plans, blows up the boat, and just fucking legs it, leaving the Mi5 who are supposed to be meeting this boat baffled, and they think at first it's an accident until they get into their scuba gear, go down, find the security all shot up and the plans missing, and then they're like, we are dealing with some deadly forces here. And so naturally they contact International Rescue.
And then you have John, as there's always John,
redeeming
himself from the understatement of the year in 30 Minutes After Noon, because here he explains the actual side effects of what could happen if this falls into the wrong hands.
Bonson says if we don't help, the entire world could be destroyed.
Wowee, that sounds serious. The entire world... The nuclear plans falling into the wrong hands could inevitably lead to the entire world being blown up, apparently.
John Tracy and nuclear bombs do not mix. That's all we can say. But then you have Lady Penelope pulling her own strings. What? It's just a pun I was going to make.
Right.
I've been trying to put that in for a while. But anyway, she's pulling her own strings. She's pulling her own strings in this plot. And so she goes off to claim that she knows where the attackers are, what's going to go wrong, what the whole plan is, and because she's got the detail, which is that she will pose as a model.
Yeah, she disguises herself as this model, and basically just goes to the press and says, with all the information that she acquired from the Mi5, the eponymous man from Mi5, who she meets up with, she leaks all these details into the newspaper. They're like, oh, look at me, I know who did it, and so obviously Carl and his friends sitting in their submarine with the plans like, what? We did not account for this. So they go up and catch her, but she's just ready for them. She even gets Parker to, she dismisses Parker, gives him the night off because she expects to be captured, and therefore she can learn more about the plans and send them to International Rescue.
A model getting involved with espionage. Where have we seen that before?
It's so familiar, I can't think.
Do not be distracted by the beautiful celebrities. Do as you've been trained to do and kill the Malaysian Prime Minister!
Oh, it'll come to me later. Yeah, but now, but also when they have to meet up with International Rescue, they do maintain that they are not a political organisation, as the British Secret Service are trying to dabble themselves in, and so they have to make sure that they don't uncover who the International Rescue agents are. So Penelope's got a gun to the guy's head and is saying, "Don't look at me, otherwise we'll shoot you dead."
Yeah, they maintain absolute secrecy. The whole time he's facing front with Lady Penelope, got a gun right to his head. And even when he sneaks a quick sneaky peek at her after she leaves, Parker lets off a fire as well. The lady said don't move!
Yeah, I don't think Parker would have made a very good lollipop man. Or green crosscode man.
My lollipop says don't move!
And then
shoots the driver who's trying to go over a zebra crossing.
Oh my god. Yeah, just never put Parker as like a road safety man or something. I remember he was in he and Penelope were in an advert about, failing to pay road tax.
Oh, is that the one where she cuts his strings down because Fab One's got like a clamp on the tyre? So anyway, this all culminates in Lady Penelope being taken into this boat and it's stored away in one of the hidden boathouses. And the terrorist Carl, in James Bond fashion, traditional James Bond fashion, explains the entire details of his plan to Lady Penelope and leaves her tied up.
And Lady Penelope then contacts International Rescue about her situation using probably the most elaborate code system that we've ever seen.
Yeah, you've seen before that she's got the little compact, which is also a Skype-esque communicator. So she's there and she's delivering, the strangest, most elaborate code ever. She's like doing her makeup and Jeff's on the other end being like, boathouse, bomb, submarine.
Discipline.
How is there like on every place where she we've been trying to figure it out. It boggles the mind. Everywhere she touches herself is probably one specific word, or is it lettering? How is it done? How is lipstick mean? Does lipstick mean vowels? Does it mean verbs?
Boathouse is a very particular, very specific word. How often are you going to hear boathouse in a conversation?
And especially like, oh yeah, you know what? We'll make this part. When I brush here, that means boathouse. When I touch here, it means kitchen sink. And when I touch here, it means Freddie Mercury.
Yeah, oh god. And then you've got this guy who, in typical James Bond fashion, wants to tie up the damsel in distress. But I mean, her response to it, when him saying, "Oh, you're going to tie me up," I can't help thinking maybe that Mrs. Crichton Ward is a little bit into the BDSM world.
Yeah, I mean, she maintains a very cool head during the whole hostage situation, because obviously she knows that he's coming for her. But she seems almost too comfortable, like she's talking to him the whole time, like, "Oh yes, you are going to blow me up, aren't you?" And it's like,
The kind of double entendres you could have got out of this, because that's what a lot of British comedy was at the time, with things like Benny Hill and the Two Ronnies, you know?
I mean, come on, for an agent of International Rescue, you think she could put a bit of effort. You think she could probably cry a bit and be like, "Oh God, no, please don't hurt me, please." But no, the whole time she's like, "Oh yeah, you're going to blow me up, you say? Blow up the boat and then get away with the plans. Oh yes, this is quite peculiar. Tell me more."
She's playing it a bit too cool.
Yeah.
For me, that would seem suspicious, but you know, this is a puppet world, so I guess anything
knows?
happens. So then, eventually, International Rescue get the message, and through the elaborateness of doing your makeup and to communicate in a problem.
Yeah.
And so they fly off in, and you've got. We actually see Thunderbird 2 landing Thunderbird 4 literally on the water.
Yeah, all the other times he just drops it like a stone into the water. But I do remember saying that at one point. I remember in an episode that he flies down, just rests it on the water. It's probably for a more stealthy entrance for Thunderbird 4, just in case the baddies catch on. If they hear a massive splash of water, they're like, "What the fuck was that?" Something the size of a house or even a skyscraper just falling into the water.
But then you've got Scott, whilst he's using sonar to detect the sub. You've got Gordon in Thunderbird 4 using what I think is probably the what was it called again? It was the penetrator or something.
No! It might have been, but penetrate. Essentially, it's a drill that drills into the submarine and shoots like tranquilizer in. But the penetrator sounds...
I had no idea that like a spy thriller could have so many double entendres to it, because literally it does kind of look like a penetrator or something.
It could be a
because he is penetrating the sub and he is giving off some kind of tranquilizer, so they all fall down in a sense that sounds like Christopher Walken trying to defuse a bomb.
Oh yeah, how they're all moaning, so it's like, "The boats!"
I'll get to the boat.
And then they collapse. But yeah, all those double entendres and stuff, that's something that's very heavily rooted in James Bond, so maybe they deliberately threw in a couple of double entendres for good measure.
Yeah, maybe. I guess they were all big fans of Ian Fleming and James Bond at the time, so yeah, this obviously influenced this stories of secrecy, and So eventually, they eventually stop these guys. The bomb doesn't go off, and Scott rescues Penny, but he rescues her in probably the most laid-back fashion ever.
When we see that he's untied Penny and the bomb had just seconds to go off, bear in mind, and Gordon only just managed to stop it just in time. And Scott's there with his leg over, across that frozen arm over the sofa, and Penny's just relaxed well. And it just seems very laid back, kind of like. I suppose working in international rescue means they do come up against a lot of shit, but it's just like, oh yeah, you almost got blown up, didn't you, Penny? Oh yeah, all in a day's work,
And you know that they say in one of the films, it's best not to have relationships whilst working with international rescue. They don't say it's not bad to have relationships within international rescue.
You got Alan and Tintin. Scott may have a soft side for Lady P. He is the oldest, and he's arguably the most suave out of the lot.
Yes. So, I mean, how do we know that Parker doesn't have a hot for someone, perhaps?
The bastard of Crichton Ward.
Yes, the bastard of Crichton Ward. It's as if Parker...
No one makes stew like you, love. Thank you, Parker.
Oh, dear me. I mean, we could go on forever. I mean, I guess we've had Jeff being a playboy, he's living with his mother, he's like Hugh Hefner's or something, and now we've got all these different boys who might be having relationships within the family, but...
It's a fun show, Thunderbirds. It's a very fun show.
This is amazing when you look at this stuff when you're older. But yeah, then again, you've got... this was a very fun episode. I mean, one bit of trivia is that we see Brains playing around with a robotic toy version of the sub that was used in Desperate Intruder by the Hood.
Yeah, in the when we first see International Rescue, he's conducting some kind of, I guess, sonar test with a little toy submarine, remote-controlled submarine, and it's the Hood submarine from Desperate Intruder.
I guess this was meant to be an episode that said to kids, you can be creative when you're playing around with small remote-controlled boats in the bath or the lake or something, or just whenever you go to the seaside and you're playing around with those ones that you can drive, you just put some money in and you're driving around.
Yeah, because it's a very water-based episode, a lot of it takes place, on the coast, in the sea, in these boathouses, on boats. I think, it kind of appeals to that part of you, almost like the way the monorail would appeal to people who like to play with toy trains. This episode may appeal to people who, enjoyed playing with, little models, submarines and boats, whether it was in the bath or at the seaside resorts.
Well, just like how Fire Flash would appeal to any kids who want to grow up to be pilots, or Thunderbird 3 with the sun probe, anyone wants to grow up to become an astronaut. So this was it. This was if you took all the great elements of playing with toys and you turned them into elements of the future. It's just brilliant.
Perhaps it was one of the reasons why this particular episode was one of my favourites as a kid. But it's mainly got to do with that catchy-ass theme song.
Oh, yes. Yeah, someone's got to have played that or done a version of it on YouTube somewhere. We've got to find it.
But stick around for the next episode, where we learn, as the eponymous title Cry Wolf would suggest, that repeated lies often lose their believability.
Yes. Well, tune in and we'll have some more moral messages for you next time.
FAB.
FAB.